Welcome, everybody. This is episode 4 of the Sound Q Garage. Today, we are reconnecting with our legend, Dan Herrington, on sound quality, competition builds, and audio passion. Welcome to another episode of the Sound Q Garage podcast, where we dive deep into the world of automotive sound quality, one story at a time. In this episode, I reconnect with someone I literally haven't spoken to since the 90s, my former boss and longtime friend, Dan Herrington. Say hi to the internet world, Dan.
Hello, internet world.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, Dan? Starting way back when you were co-owner of Cartoons 2, or does that imply that there was a Cartoons 1?
Yeah, well, I'll go back a little bit. So I grew up in Middlefield, Connecticut. I went to Vinyl Tech for electrical, and when I graduated high school, I was a rambling type. So I took off for San Diego with 2 toolboxes and 2 suitcases, and just to go out there and see what would happen. I was out there for about a year. I came back and I started a job. Well, actually, in San Diego. The job that I found after being there a month or two was San Diego Auto Sound. It was kind of cool because you drove around Escondido, Encinitas, all the way down to National City and Poway, anywhere in between. So I got to see the place, in a year really well. And we'd go to car dealerships and upgrade stereos. I remember the old 5.0 Mustangs were coming out, and those things were awesome. And I did cruise controls and sunroofs and all this stuff. So that's where I got my toe dunk in the water of car audio. And then came back to Connecticut, and I was looking for a job once I got back, and I found a job at Cartoons, the original Cartoons.
Mm-hmm.
There were 3 owners from a store that was on Main Street, Middletown, or just off Main Street, Middletown. Fred Locke, maybe. I don't know. There's a bunch of old names of car, or not only car, but home audio stores back then.
Yep.
And the 3 guys left that store and they started Cartoons. And that little plaza there where Route 72 Diner is there in East Berlin.
Mm-hmm.
And my wife always corrects me on that. It's Berlin, I think, instead of Berlin. And so I started working there, and they tried me on a Saturday. They had an installer, and I went in there and I went at it. I didn't have the toolage I needed, or it was, Metro was probably just getting started back then. I would imagine it's about 1983, I think, and I did a Saturday, and they fired the guy and they hired me. So
oh wow,
I did that. Yep. We were there for about a year and a half. And then we moved over to the plaza behind Burger King there in Cromwell on Route 72.
Yeah.
And that's where it really took off. We did home audio and car audio.
Mm-hmm.
And it really was awesome. I mean, we let's see, that brings us up to somewhere around 1987, and Car Audio Nationals, Alpine sponsored event. They did, local shows. We had one at our store there, and then if you won there, you went down to the semifinals in New York, somewhere just out. I think it was Long Island. That represented the winners on the East Coast, and then they shipped. I did a van for a handicapped guy.
Okay.
He had gotten in a car accident. Yeah. Rob Grenier was his name. He was a good man. And we did a unique van install there, Alpine amps, Alpine head unit. And I got introduced to raw drivers. So I started doing raw drivers. They were Gauss subwoofers. That's a name I haven't heard in a long time. I had Peerless dual 6-inch mid-bass. Dyne Audio D52 mid-range. I can't believe I'm believing these or memorizing these model numbers. And then D28 Dyne Audio tweeters. Those were in the back.
Yep.
In the front, I think I had Philips 6-inch mid bass, and Phillips tweeter.
Yeah.
And that thing sounded incredible. It was all active crossover,
All
and
active
that
back
thing
then, huh?
sounded, yeah. This is early days,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
I mean, some of
usually,
those
go
drivers
ahead.
that you named are still pretty big to this day. Dyna Audio,
Yep.
Peerless, they still make good
Yep.
stuff.
No, absolutely. And so we ended up winning the East Coast. So this is 1987. Yeah,
Yeah.
87. And so they shipped the van out to San Diego,
Okay.
SeaWorld, paid for, my wife came and another guy from the store, and we're staying in this awesome hotel in San Diego.
Yeah.
And it was at SeaWorld, and it was like a Hollywood event, fireworks and all this stuff going off.
Wow.
And
That's exciting.
yeah, we got second place by 1 point.
Wow.
And
I think I
you
saw
you
that
would
van. It was it a dark colored van? Could swear that van was
yeah,
in the
like a dark
magazines.
maroon.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I remember.
yeah.
Yeah, that van was in more than one magazine, actually. I don't remember.
There was early magazines. Really, I don't remember magazines when I was starting out in this thing.
Yep.
They seemed like the magazines came, probably in the later 80s. I
Mhm.
could be wrong about everything I say today, but it's a long time ago. But I remember it was maybe the first issue of one of the major magazines. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
But anyway,
What I remember when I first met you, believe it or not, you're one of the main reasons I got into sound quality in cars. You started talking about Matasound. Do you remember Matasound?
yeah, that's where I'd get my raw drivers.
Yeah, they're still around to this day, but back then they had like a catalog. You would get a catalog, and you told me about Morel. You're like, oh yeah, Morel and Vifa and all this, and I'm like, what the hell is this guy talking about? Back then, I only heard about stuff from Crutchfield, like
right. Brand
Pioneer,
names.
Sony,
Yeah.
Alpine.
Yeah.
I thought, and here you are. I'm meeting you for the first time. You were always going 100 miles an hour. I remember that about you. We had to walk and talk. You were co-owner of Cartoons too, but you were also an installer, correct?
Yeah. So we won that in 87, and then I worked for Cartoons. We eventually moved out of Cromwell. The two partners left, and the one partner moved it over to on 60, kind of behind Monroe Muffler.
Yeah.
It was only about 2,200 square feet. It was a small place.
Yeah, I remember that. It was a tiny little place.
Yep. And I worked for him for a couple of years, and then I left. I just it had its heyday, and it was kind of piddling out, and there was lack of money and stuff. So I went to work for Sound Playground. Remember that?
Yeah, yeah.
And
yep.
yeah,
I haven't heard that about
floor.
that place in a long time. Sound Playground. Yep.
Yep. They did a ton of, those 5 to 50 sales were just unbelievable. That people would be lined up down the street about a mile.
Yeah.
And then when the doors opened, sprinting and tripping, and it was wild. But I worked there for about a year, and the managers of the store, maybe not even a year, but one of the managers of the store came to me and said, let's start our own car audio store. So
was that Alan?
That was Alan. Yep. And real nice guy, great guy.
Yep.
So, and that was the month he asked me to do that was the month that I became the number one salesman in the whole company out of 250, selling those warranties. I'd sell the warranties way up front in the sale. Mm-hmm. People wouldn't even know they were getting it, I guess. But anyway, I was trying to support my family, of course.
Of course, yeah.
So we get to, I call up the owner of Cartoons, and Bob, and he sells it to me for, dirt money to just come in and take over.
Wow.
So
I'm surprised because car audio was really starting to get its wind at that point.
He just didn't have the people. He was trying to mow it along, and, it needed, the fresh air of new meat. So I came in, and the first year we like tripled what he was doing. The second year that doubled, then it doubled again. We were doing over $1 million of that 2,200 square feet.
Wow. Yeah.
We paved a parking lot in back because there was no room for cars,
Yeah. Yeah.
So now it's about 1993, and Ray Brodeur, I had done a car for him out of my garage when I was working at Sound Playground.
Yeah.
And he came in and he wanted to do a killer system.
Yeah.
So I said to him, he bought a brand new 93 Honda 4-door.
Yep.
So I said to him, why don't we initially want to spend probably 10 to 15 grand, if I remember right. I said, why don't we do IASCA competition?
Mm-hmm.
And he says, all right, I'll work overtime. The guy worked nothing but overtime for it's like 80 hours a week, right, to pay for it.
Yep.
And I start doing that job, but the business is growing like exponentially. So I'm trying to do the business, get out before midnight, and do this big car, without the facility that you would really want to do this thing. So it dragged out for 2 years, but I didn't compromise on any aspect of that car as I was working on it. I'd just make everybody wait if that's what it took to do it.
Well, the main reason
in my mind
it took so long was because Ray insisted, or did you insist that only you work on it? Is that?
He was very patient with me because, no, I wanted to be the one doing the work on it.
Mm-hmm.
I'd have tidbits of the job worked on by other people, here, do this for me, do that for me. But I'd say 99% of the car I did.
Yeah, I remember.
And
that car sounded
fantastic.
Yeah, I remember. So I know it went through a couple iterations because when you were building it, I remember you had KEF Uni-Qs in the kick panels, but didn't the Uni-Qs keep blowing and then you pivoted to the Dyna Audios? If I remember, it's been so long, but I don't
remember that. Yeah. I used to use KEF Uni-Qs once in a while, but I don't remember that. I mean, it could be true. I am 62 years old. So,
yeah, because I remember you had the KEF. That's how I was in. When I heard it, I was getting my Civic worked on as well, and
that's right. I remember you had a Civic.
Yeah, I had the purple Civic that had several systems, and then I worked for you for a little while. I don't know if you remember that. Remember that I accidentally crashed that kid's car? I backed up and I crushed the kid's door.
No,
with the garage.
This.
You don't remember that?
No.
Well, when I first started working for you, you had me doing like little things like picking up around the store and, organizing things. And then you started to trust me with small jobs like Decking 2, Decking 4. I think I did a few alarms. I started to do,
yeah.
But one day I was
hungry to get into it.
Yeah. Oh God. I was that pesky kid. I don't know if you remember when you first met me. I was 17 years old. I literally lived 45 minutes away, but I was at your shop like once or twice a week, scoping out stuff.
Yeah. I remember that.
Haggling with you for prices. And I remember you telling me this guy memorizes all the prices. I'd come in with the car audio and electronics. I called it the Bible because it had all the prices in there. And me and you would just go back and forth haggling on the prices. And so one day, I think I told you I want to work there. And you're like, you just want to work here for the employee discount.
Yeah. Oh, did I say that?
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah. Well, you were joking, but I was like, well, yeah, it would. But I remember when I was working there, even when I clocked out, I still hung around. I loved it.
Was this at the Coven or was it up behind Monroe Muffler on 66?
No, I worked on when we worked at the Coven Drive at the old Sears building.
Yeah. That was a great building.
Oh
like 12
man,
bays,
yeah, you guys
3
went.
lifts.
Yeah, that place was.
Yeah.
It's funny if you want to go into that, how you guys went from 2,200 square feet to what 20,000 square feet. Why don't you talk about that?
So we're like I mean, the business is doubling every year. And when you're doubling your business every year, it is stressful. I was so stressed out. I had
I
at
can
that time
imagine.
probably 5 kids,
Mm-hmm.
4 or 5 kids, and I have 9 now. And,
Oh, wow.
the oldest is 18. No, the oldest is 40 and in September, and the youngest is 18.
Oh, wow.
And, it's out of the house this year. So my wife and I are looking at each other going, okay, it's time for us now. And, I don't think we know what to do with ourselves. So we were just, man, it was rocking. You just couldn't, we didn't advertise. You didn't have to. We did this little cable commercial one time, real spoofy and goofy, and it was funny. I had a video. I probably still have the videotape of it. It was great. But, we put it out on cable, but we really didn't need it. We were doing cell phones, alarms, as fast as we could get the cars out.
Car
The
phones.
goal was
Remember the
to be
car
able to go
phones?
home.
You guys had a car
phones.
phone section too. Remember that?
When we went down to Coven. So
Yep.
that I'd say probably in 96 or 7. That came, Sears had moved out of that automotive right on the highway. You couldn't make it any of a more perfect scenario for a shop. Matter of fact, there's still a shop there now that does, leather seats and moonroofs and all kinds of.
Yep.
They do a great job. They're really good businessmen. Those guys, really good.
Well, it's a perfect
In fact,
location.
One of my employees.
It's a perfect location.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. You throw a banner up and the whole world sees it driving down home, into those towns all below and stuff. So we moved down there in the winter. It's probably 96. No, more. Probably 96. And that's where I finished Brodeur's car. Staying late every night, it just didn't end, trying to get out of there at a reasonable hour to be with the family. That was a tough part of that. You take people's keys, you want to deliver, always had urgency to give customer service to the max,
Yep.
And there's a sacrifice to that. You sacrifice your own life.
Of course.
So I'd probably do it again, if I had to do it again. I loved my customers. I had such faithful customers. It was wild.
Yeah.
They would come from way out of state. We had people coming up out of New Jersey, New Hampshire, Massachusetts. They'd take that drive. I just wanted to make sure they were hooked up. So
yeah, I remember.
So at one point there, I get done with Brodeur's car. We win the World Finals. And I mean, that car was special. It just was,
So
it was done with no knowledge of what the rest of the industry was doing. Everything was kind of unique.
I remember, I remember that car actually had some really unique things. Like you had these ground straps made out of copper and Sonex on the roof, right? Sonex liner or something along those lines. And you had,
you remember that, huh?
I remember all that. Cause it was so different that I was like, wow, like, and why don't you tell people about some of the unique features of that car that got you
I always would
winning formula?
When I was driving down the road, I'm thinking about this stuff. I'm laying in bed at night. I'm thinking. I wake up in the morning. First thought of my mind is overcoming the physics.
Mm-hmm.
You're trying to create a 30-foot wide sound stage, 30 feet deep. And imaging. When you're sitting off to one side. All these things in a car, right? That's all glass, reflective glass around you, and resonating surfaces, So I'd always try to work all that out in my head, on the best way to do each thing. So I mean, the grounding you brought up, I had a next door neighbor that was a Motorola guy, real deep Motorola guy his whole career,
Yep.
Two-way radios and all that. And he says, "Why are you using round ground?" I go, "What do you mean? Everybody uses round ground." No, he says, round ground has eddy currents running around the surface, the skin effect on a wire. And he says, it acts like a transmitter. If we tried to ground a trunk that had an antenna for a two-way radio, it wouldn't work with round ground. So he says, you got to do flat. I said, really? Okay. So I looked into that. Back then there's no internet, but I don't remember where I got my information from, but I read on that and stuff. And And so I took copper flashing. I calculated the thickness of the copper and how wide it would need to be to equal the size wire I was shooting at. And then I laminated it like your driver's license is laminated.
Yep.
I ran it through a laminator. My buddy's father was building these laminators. He said, "Can I borrow one?" so I insulated it, with laminate and then laid it flat. I mean, think about how it runs under the carpet. You don't even know it's there.
Yeah, it's flat.
And if you got to take a corner, you fold it over. Go another direction.
Mm-hmm.
And then so everything's grounded with flat conductor, and then I went to I brought everything down to the center ground plane of the vehicle, the central point, probably under the console. So all grounds come back to one point on the ground plane of the vehicle. And then I ran a static strap to the road. So you ever get in your car and you get snapped by the door, on your arm? Static electricity. So, okay, let's get rid of static electricity. So when he drives around, the entire car is being grounded at all times with the ground strap, right? So that was and everything you're doing in a car like that, if you're going after IASCA, is you're thinking, International Auto Sound Challenge Association. You're thinking about, how can I score points beyond the norm, So you're always trying to come up, like with the power wire at the battery. So I had one of those big bus fuses, with the clear cover.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I did is I drilled through the phenolic or whatever the material is around the fuse. I drilled through it and I ran a little thin piece of flexible wire around the fuse filament, and then put a red handle, which was an emergency pull. So if you had like a problem, you're not going to get a tool, take the fuse out, disconnect the battery. So you just go in there and you grab this little red loop and pull it, and it'll rip the fuse in half.
Wow.
So, that gains points, right? And then like you said, the Sonex foam, I created a grill that flushed into the ceiling of the back seat, and did Sonex, foam, absorption foam.
That's incredible.
And then I made the back of the fold down seats, the rear seat. I made it a completely grill. There's a great company out there called McNichols and Company.
Mm-hmm.
If any of these car audio guys haven't found them yet, they're out of, New Jersey. They sell all kinds of different great grid, anything you want. It's like great stuff. You can do it stainless steel, any kind of material you want. And so I made the whole back seat completely breathable. And then I did the same thing with the rear deck, cut it all out. Forget if I welded in maybe, some grill material, thick, grill material, to make the car breathable from trunk to the front of the vehicle. And then of course, the obvious would be the Dynamat, it's probably 2-layered or whatever. And then the subwoofer enclosure was this. You can see it in the pictures or the magazine article. It's a, stop sign shaped box and machined up, a stand for it out of aluminum. And I went to the junkyard and I got a power seat motor out of a Tempo, Ford Tempo, and then rigged that and then packed it in sound. I forget how I did it, but I packed it like under the vehicle so you wouldn't hear the motor.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like a silent motorization where you can face the woofers forward, face them up off the glass, face them to the rear for a bump, right? So you can change the positioning of your subwoofers firing to change the sound. And I had a control up front where you can, man, when you were listening to that and moving that back and forth, total difference, even by inches,
Oh, yeah. I imagine it made a huge difference. And fun fact, too, that box, I was so intrigued by that box that your woodworking guy, because you used to have a guy up the street make the boxes for you. And he made a replica, another one. Not as intricate. You had your woofers recessed a little bit, but the guy made the same exact box for my car, for my Civic, but mine wasn't motorized.
Who's the guy that was making the boxes?
He was up the street. I remember you sent me to I don't remember his name, but I remember when I said I want that box, when I saw Ray's box, and you called them up and you said, "Hey, can you make another one?" But instead you made the front flat instead of the woofer sort of recessed a little bit. If I remember correctly.
I used to make a lot of boxes. I don't really remember this. Or there was some guy that I had making boxes for me. There was a guy, Steve, over in East Hampton.
He was on Route 66. The guy that I picked up the box from. You called him up and you told he was like a woodworking guy. I went over there and I picked it up for my Civic. Because I remember
I'm not pulling this up. Yeah,
it was so long ago. I mean, we're talking almost 30. The guy was on Route 66, and I remember you calling him and you said you wanted another box, and it had the same cubic airspace as Ray's, but it was flat in the front. But it would stop shining.
I must have been too busy because I'm still spitting up MDF at this point, all these years later.
Well, this was at the Coven Drive. Were you making boxes at the Coven Drive? I don't remember.
Yeah. We had that little wood shop out back. Oh, tons of them. Yeah, we were making them every day.
Oh, okay.
They're torturous. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Routers and you know what was a fun thing back at the Coven is we found this paper company that this guy worked at, and I'd give him $50 a piece for these tubes. They were about probably 12-inch inside diameter, 12 inches in diameter, and they would come really long. I can cut them I remember figuring out how to do your volume on a cylinder. I think it was 2 times pi r squared or something. I'd be able to just cut these things at a certain length, and they came with like 1.5 inch thick particle board end caps. So you just have to cut them out, glue them, shoot them, cut them out, and then think how easy it is to do a cylinder with carpet, right?
Yeah,
just roll a carpet on it.
Yep, I remember those.
And, we sold 1 million of those things. They sounded great.
Because the base tubes were popular back then. The bazookas.
Yeah.
If you didn't have bazookas, you were gonna go out of business because those things were so popular back then. But I remember the tubes that you're talking about. There was a whole bunch in the back, and I was like, "What the heck are they doing?" And then you guys were making
some
the
paper
custom
company. I'd give the guy he'd bring them by. His car was loaded with them. He'd bring them by, drop them off. I give him $50 a piece. It was a way to make an enclosure quick and down and dirty.
Yeah. Hey, if it works, it works, and if it sounds good, you can't complain.
Let's go. Let's finish Brodeur's car here because there's a couple of cool things.
That's what I was going to ask about. Is how did you guys pivot from finishing the car to then going to IASCA? Like what?
Yeah, and as it's coming together, we just know, okay, this is special. So in the psych heightened, and he's working more and more overtime hours to pay for it, and I'm staying later and later at night. As I've had to think for like 1.5 years, 2 years, or whatever it was. So the tweeters, I took the Dynaudio D28 tweeter, which was just such a smooth, soft dome. Oh, it was just such a great tweeter, high end. They were. Back then, they were probably a couple $100 a piece or whatever. That was a lot, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I went over to a machinist in Portland, this old guy, and I said, would you shave down the flanges on these tweeters, to the size of the magnet? And he did that for me. And then I went and I found, like the eyeball lights Grandpa has in front of his fireplace, where you can face the lighting anywhere you want. It's like a ball. In the frame, and I machined those down so that they were as small as they could be.
Mm-hmm.
And then, because I wanted my tweeters to be adjustable, I wanted as much to be adjustable in there. We have the base is adjustable, right? I want something to work with when it comes time to tweak. Okay, because you could do a great job on a car, get all the way to the end, and it's like, man, I'm struggling to get image in here.
Yeah,
and it's phase balance placement, right? So I've got my tweeters that I can rotate on the dash. And by the way, I made kitty hair fiberglass mounts that made them look like they're supposed to be there up on top of the dash. And then I ordered from Japan the factory dash, leather, vinyl, or whatever it was on the dashboard, so it matched perfectly, right? So you could rotate the tweeters to splash those off the glass at different angles. Boy, it gives you something to work with. You play around, cause and effect, and it takes hours and hours and hours and hours of playing with it until you get it where you think it should be. So, and then I did the Dynaudio. I think it's a 7-inch mid-range in the kick panels,
Mm-hmm.
and that's a full fiberglass enclosure in there. Pour water in to measure the volume, so they're both exactly the same. And then in the doors of that Honda, with the limited space, and I'm trying to make this thing look like you get in the car and you can't tell there's a stereo in it, and the seat's up, and I want it to look as factory as possible, which was also a scoring thing, back then.
Mm-hmm.
And so I made enclosures that go and take up all the air volume I can in there to get to the right air volume. And I did 5-inch cliff design, which I think they were just, painting VIFA drivers red, but cliff designs, I always liked them. They sounded good.
That's when they first came out. I remember.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that was a good set of components there,
Yep.
A little cheesy looking, but they sounded great.
I did not know that they may have been VIFA rebranded. You would know better than I would on that front.
If you held the VIFA next to it, like a 5-inch mid bass driver, and you hold it next to it, it looked exactly the same.
That's funny.
So
yeah.
A lot of the companies do that.
Oh yeah, they do that to this day. A lot of companies do that. Alpine used to do that a lot.
You don't have to reinvent the wheel; just make the crossover unique and right.
There you go.
So no, the crossover's everything. So that was the mid bass, and then this was, to this day, I go, how did I pull this off? I put under the seats. Remember how big the Macintosh amps were?
Oh,
4x100.
Yeah. Yep.
4x50. So I got 4x50 for my tweeters, and 2 channels in the back for the ambient fill coming from the back.
Yeah.
And then which didn't really play too much of a role. I'd play with phase on them and stuff and see if I can create a bigger image and everything. But that was the 4x50. The 4x100 was for the mid bass and the mid range.
Mm-hmm.
And those Mac amps were monsters, and I got them under the seat of that 93 Honda.
Yeah, they
completely
are
hidden.
Real big.
I remember the seat would just miss the thing, never scraped.
Yeah, no, you don't want to scratch those bad boys. They were expensive then. They're still expensive now. People love those amps. Those are
they're still selling them?
Oh yeah, well, not brand new, but on the used market, they're very coveted. They're still to this day one of the cleanest amps that you can buy. People recap them.
You know what one of the secrets was?
What's that?
I keep interrupting you.
No, not at all.
I'm so excited to talk about something I haven't talked about in 30 years.
I'm excited for you.
So I had to do this 85-foot carbon fiber racing yacht.
Mm-hmm.
It was like the family that invented cable TV, right? And they would just go around the world. They had a crew in the boat that would bring it in, to Italy and then down to Antigua and just all over the place. And they would do this maxi class of racing on sailboats. They're 85 foot big, right?
Wow.
And this guy really wanted awesome sound. So they sought me out. They came up with the boat engineer and the captain and all these people, and we met back and forth, and it had to do about weight, right? So you had to bring everything down to the lowest possible weight, right? And so I wanted to use the Macintosh amps, and get rid of all the weight to them and the size, and put the circuit and figure out how to do heat dissipation and so forth, in a boat, right? So with taking that apart and analyzing it, the tracers are about the size of a hair in that thing on the circuit board.
Yeah.
Right. Where I was used to seeing all these amps, Ryan and PPI and all these amps, great big tracers on the board. But that was their secret to making it sound good. It's the small tracers. That's what the engineer at Macintosh told me.
Oh, wow.
And Yeah, that was back then.
That's
And
good to know. I know they're big in the
yeah.
home audio scene still to this day, but as far
Oh,
as car
huge. Yeah,
audio,
huge.
I think they're doing a collaboration with Jeep. They're doing this huge thing with Jeep. I haven't, I've seen it advertised, I've seen pictures, but as far as like, regular people, like civilians like us, we can't buy those Macintosh amps or anything Macintosh audio car related anyway, unless it's used stuff, from the 90s, which, like I said, it's still good stuff and it still sells for a pretty premium because those are, they've been measured as one of the cleanest amps out on the market. So
That's why I chose them for that job, because of all the amps that I'd played with through the years. To me, that was, I'm not just looking to slam. I'm going for sound quality.
oh yeah, of course.
And
Yeah.
and that Mac at that time was the best that I knew of. So that's why I went with them. And then, but for the bass, I went with Rockford. I think I had a Rockford 400
Yeah, for the
in
subwoofers.
there. For the subwoofers, yeah, because Rockford's bass was always great.
Yeah, they were powerful amps back then. They're still powerful amps even now. I know a lot of people. There's some people that have a passion for the old school. There's even an old school stereo web channel, old school stereo Facebook page and stuff like that. And there's a lot of collectors. The end caps on the Rockford Fosgate amps.
Yeah,
Those
they
are
sell for money.
They sell for.
I
I had a bunch of Rockford Fosgate amps. The end caps alone sell for almost $150 because that's the first thing people lose.
I saw that recently. Yeah. Yeah.
I remember that you were a pack rat. I remember Alan goofing on you because you wouldn't throw anything away. And ironically, one time I was trying to buy a PPI amp from you, and I said, I don't have the money. I said, I'm going to put it on layaway. I'm going to like remember we had like this layaway thing back then. And I said, I got this Sony amp that my brother wants. He wants to buy it, but I can't live without music for a week. And you're like, well, here, I'll give you this amp. And you went in the back and you dug around in this big pile of what looked like junk to me. And you freaking rip out.
I used all of it, brother. I used all of it.
you rip out this like Punch 150 or Punch 75 Rockford that was one of the, I think it was probably the second one made, from Rockford Fosgate. I had never heard of Rockford Fosgate before. This is all your fault, man. This sound quality audio thing
funny.
sound quality addiction that I've had since the 90s is all due to you, brother. But so you give me this Rockford Fosgate amp. I rip out the Sony amp. I sell it to my brother. I'm like, what's this Rockford Fosgate? I put it in my car and it freaking blows me away. I'm like, what? How could this thing run my entire system? Because remember that you could do mix mono with the Rockford amps?
Oh, yeah.
And I was just blown away. This thing was running my subwoofer, my two back speakers, my Morel separates in the front, and then I had kicker mid-ranges in the dash, and the Rockford was running it. It would get hot like crazy, but it wouldn't distort, and it would play it cleanly. I was blown away. A
lot of guys back then got heavy into passive crossover networks and would just take one amp and build the whole system around it, just playing with the passive crossovers to get everything dialed in.
Yeah.
Yeah, no question. Those are, I don't know anything about the new stuff. That's the thing. I follow the group you just spoke of. I follow different groups, and I don't say anything because they're talking about brands and they're doing stuff. I know DSP sounds like it's a big deal now, right?
Yep.
Which, let me tell you this. So the rep for Clarion, which I always had a lot of respect for Clarion. They always sounded great. I was an Alpine guy mainly, and Eclipse, right? But Clarion always, you got to respect the way they sounded. They were good.
Yep.
And, they'd look a little different. Alpine and Eclipse just had a little higher end look and stuff in the dash. But so the Clarion rep comes in and he sells me and Brodeur last minute. I'd say 6 months before showtime. I don't know the model number. I tried to search it online. There's probably very few people that even know about this piece.
Mm-hmm.
But if you look in the pictures of the car in the back left, where I made that cover over it, that's a digital analog converter with a fiber optic. This is 1996.
Yeah. So this was ahead of its
With
time.
that head unit, you can do time alignment of every speaker.
Mm-hmm.
With memory, you can do different positionings and memorize it. Time alignment of every speaker, huge. When you're tweaking a system, give me that. And if you don't give me anything else, I'll live with that, right? Then it's got parametric EQ,
Yep.
graphic EQ. What else was in that thing? But this is all way ahead of its time.
The crossovers,
Clarion
I imagine,
only
right?
made, what's that?
The crossovers, I imagine, right? Crossover settings?
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Full crossovers. I think you could do from Butterworth to Linkwood's Riley. You can do different 24 dB out. Yeah, no, it had all kinds of different 6 dB, 12 dB, 24 dB, 18 and 24 dB per octave slopes.
Wow.
Right? This was all like way ahead of its time. This was like high-end pro gear or something mentality. And I found out last year, who told me this? I can't remember. Last year, I found out that Clarion only sold 6 of those units.
Wow.
They were $6,500 cost.
Well, that might be
For
that
a
might
head
be
unit.
the main. Well, think about it. That was the 90s, right? Imagine what 65 would be now, like double that, So that would be like
It'd be like a $13,000 head unit.
Yeah. So, I mean, even now, that's a lot of money. If somebody said, "Hey, I want $6,500 for a head unit," but I mean, it was a head unit, DSP crossover. It ticked a lot of boxes.
The thing was a monster.
So that was basically what you used to tune the car. That Clarion unit.
That was the head unit in the car.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, think about, I worked on it for hundreds of hours. Because I like to poke the edges, push it in every direction, get so used to what it is doing that you can really dial in and I played the same 5 songs, real hard to make sound good vocal out of that IASCA disc there.
Yep.
I don't remember what track it was. And then, sine wave sweeps and the drums, the 7 drums across the stage.
Yep.
To hear where your imaging is laying in, if it's even or if it's biased to one side or not. And I spent, I don't know if I was to guess, a couple hundred hours toying with that and dialing it in till we showed up at, before I go into that. So the CD changer, now remember, I'm trying to keep this thing wide open. So it's like a usable car. You can put stuff in your trunk. I mean, I didn't take up too much room overall in the whole thing. And so I mounted the CD changer 6-disc into the bumper. I created a fiberglass enclosure around it. So it's living outside in the bumper. So when you open the trunk, it's flush to the rear wall of the trunk.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you put your disc in. Even if you have a bunch of crap in the trunk, you can still put your disc in there.
So you found room in there. There's like a little hollow space in there.
Yeah, the bumper was like hollow.
Yeah.
The bumper, you got this distance until it meets the car. And so, I carved that out and did an enclosure so it wouldn't, be penetrated by weather and dirt and everything.
Yeah.
And, that was kind of a neat. Oh, the floor mats, you can't tell from the pictures, but that was pretty cool. So I machined down some plexi. It was probably 1/2-inch plexi. I machined it down, and what you see is maybe 1 inch by 6 inches, coming through the floor mat. Those are custom floor mats that I made complete. I got the factory material and sewed it and everything. So what I did is that piece of plexi is actually like 4 inches by 6 inches. And then I cut a channel through it to put a neon tube.
Mm-hmm.
And then I etched in the words, driver's side says Honda, passenger side says Accord EX. and then put a mirror backing on it. So when you see Honda, it goes Honda, 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 down about 20 times.
Yeah.
Glowing in blue neon when you open the door. Just a little, sexy thing to throw in there at the last
little
minute.
added beauty touch, right?
Everybody loved that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And,
Well, with IASCA, you had to have little things like that to get extra creativity points. I know that you'd be surprised how different IASCA is now, because this car
still have it.
Was it a 2-seat tune? Yeah, IASCA is still around, but they're not as strict. The rules are completely different compared to the 90s. I know in the 90s cars, they would check the car bumper to bumper, make sure that the fuse was X amount of inches away, and they're not as strict, because obviously everything kind of went down with the car audio thing. I think I don't know the direct reason why it died down, but I would definitely say that 90s was the heyday, the golden era of car audio. It's coming back. That's why I made this podcast, SoundQ Garage. There's a resurrection coming. There's a lot more people at the get-togethers.
It does seem like that. Yeah, people are getting into this again. Huh?
Yeah, they are, and it's mostly sound quality based, which is really nice, because there's a lot of cars that were SPL cars, but like I was saying with Ray's Accord, you had to have creativity points like that. What you told me about the battery, that's something that like Tesla has. That's incredible that you were way ahead of your time with the fuse, that the thing to pull it, because I know the Tesla automobiles have that for the firemen in case there's an accident or something like that. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, there's like a ring that you pull and it disconnects the battery. But that's an incredible. Wow. That would be incredible to do now. That's a really good idea. I'm going to steal your idea, Dan.
I'm looking for a royalty on that, actually.
That's great. So you guys get into IASCA, and are you going with Ray to the IASCA competitions? Because
we're in Greenville. We get in the car at my house. We leave my house at night. We're going to drive through the night and get to Greenville, South Carolina, the finals. So Ray, has this bright idea that he's driving. He's going to drink a bunch of coffee. So he has like 3 large coffees. He gets caffeine pills at the gas station.
Oh my God.
And he's taking these caffeine pills. And when he hears this, he's going to laugh, because we're about halfway down there and I'm sleeping in the passenger seat. I wake up and we're doing like 35 miles an hour on 95. And I go, Ray, what are we doing? And he's geeking out. He had like a caffeine trip, it was
That's
crazy.
Funny.
So
Ray seeing colors.
I love Ray so much. He was such a, he was a character. Have a better customer.
Yeah. Ray was a character.
He's a character, but his heart is gold. This guy is awesome.
And you told me he still has the car to this day, right?
Yeah, I'm going to tell you about that at the end. There's a little twist in the last week here. I'll tell you about that.
Oh, okay, okay.
So we get down to the finals, and I've got bronchitis, and we're meeting all these cool people. Mike Minio from New York, he was cool and knowledgeable, and I've heard his name through the years. I just heard it recently for the first time, probably 30 years, but. He was a big heavy hitter down in New York and stuff. And so we're up against a car from Canada, a car from Australia, and a car from China.
Oh, wow.
Obviously they shipped them over for the finals. Okay. And we won this thing. Those guys were so mad. Oh, they were so upset. I felt bad. I was going to hand them the trophy here. So, but they, back then they judged pretty good. Probably depended what line you were in, but we got judged critically, and we took first place in both, sound quality and then sound quality plus, I think it was called, which was SPL also. And we took first in both categories, and it was exciting. And on the ride back, so we got to, I say 18 hours, but it couldn't be that much, right? It was probably
Georgia, you said?
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, no, that's about 18 if you're driving straight through.
Yeah, South Carolina. So
South Carolina.
16, 18. Yeah. having to pee and stuff. He probably was 18. So on the ride back, in the excitement, I get inspired. And here's a weird thing. I had been obsessed with car audio. It's like all I thought about.
Mm-hmm.
It's, I sacrificed my family over it over and over and over, which, I regret in a way and I don't know. But after winning that, I don't know. I lost interest in it.
You lost interest
but
in
I was
car audio?
Like, I didn't lose interest in it. Just, I just didn't want the fight anymore or something. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I never really worked that out in my head, but I know that on the ride back, I got inspired for the ultimate home speaker.
Yep.
Okay. So I took some of what I did in that car, actually, like the adjustability of the tweeters, adjustability of the subwoofer. So that's where my mind was, right? Giving you something you can tweak
mm-hmm.
and make it better. So I wrote out a 4-page report, and with diagrams and everything. I came home. I didn't have a computer. I probably didn't get one till 99, I think. So I came home. I went to my buddy's house. I had a computer, and I had him write me a full 4-page report on all the details of what I ended up calling Proclaim speakers.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And this was about 99, you said?
Yeah, that was the original idea. I
mm-hmm.
put it in paper. Didn't do anything with it for about 3 years. Great idea. What it takes to bring something like a good idea to fruition is a lot of work, and a lot of money. And, I'm trying to support my family. So I'm not able to put into it what I have in my head. So I meet, I'm doing home theater at this time. I go into doing home theaters, electrician, home theaters. I'm just like going from one house to the next, whole house audio, and building out full rooms, upholstery, I'm getting into it. So that's my next thing I'm on to. So I meet this customer that I do this big job for out of Connecticut, and he's got a lot of money, and he wants to invest in something. So meanwhile, I've been working on a prototype for 4 years in my basement, right? So I take the prototype over to his basement one night with another guy that wants to invest. This other guy just happened to be doing this $500,000 millwork job for this medical company. And he says, I want to invest in something. I got some money I want to invest. Do you have any ideas? I says, yeah, I got a speaker I've been working on. So I meet with all three of them, and I play it for them, and they're just jaw dropped, and they said, okay, we want to invest. So I quit my job, and I start working out of the garage,
mm-hmm.
Making good money, working out of my garage on developing this speaker. So I worked on it for probably a year and a half. I bought this lathe that was a 21-inch bed over lathe to be able to create the molds and stuff for building these things. And I experimented with spun aluminum with a layer of concrete on the inside, because I want to, the goal is first of all, I'm doing toilet reading in the Encyclopedia of Audio Engineers from 1948.
Mm-hmm.
And it shows graphs of the frequency response coming off of different shapes. It shows a cylinder, it shows a triangle, it shows a square, a rectangle, all these different shapes, and what happens to the sound because of the shape that it's coming off of. Okay. And one of them is a sphere. So it says at the end of the article, this is H.G. Olson from like RCA Records, writing this. And he says, this experiment shows that the only true shape to originate sound from is a sphere.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you think about sound propagating from a cone of a speaker, it's trying to fold around 360 degrees, right?
Yep.
And if you have it mounted on a baffle that goes 6 inches off to each side, these frequencies are coming off, hitting the baffle, reflecting out, and clashing with the original frequencies coming from the cone, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that made sense to me. And I go, okay, I'm starting with a sphere. And then I was reading about like the types of materials, we do like double MDF, heavy MDF braced and all this to get, because there's so many forces that are happening when a cone is going, ooh, 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 right? That the surface it's mounted to and the surrounding surfaces are resonating.
Mm-hmm.
And all that's doing is it's like sending mud into the good sound.
Yeah.
Okay. Plus it's canceling out the driver itself and all these other problems, right? So I go, okay, if I'm standing on a 6-inch thick slab of concrete and you're standing 10 feet away from me, if I slap my foot on the ground, you feel it in your feet. Okay, so concrete's not the right thing. It's still rigid, and it'll translate the vibration. So, but I said, if we're standing at the beach and I come up and I slap my foot down next to you 3 inches away, you don't feel nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Because one grain hits the next, and it gets dissipated by the time it's a few grains away from the original impact, right? So I go, all right, I'm using sand, which I know Yamaha had done something with sand in the baffle with their speaker years ago and stuff. So that's not like an original idea. Kind of obscure, but not original. So, all right, what kind of material can I make this sphere out of that would be the strongest? Like an egg. You take an egg and you try to crack it by squeezing it, right? You can't, because of the shape makes it automatically strong, right? So a sphere is a very strong shape, very rigid and strong. So I did fiberglass, an outer fiberglass shell with an inner fiberglass shell. So I got to make 2 shells, pain in the neck. And then I put 7/8 inch of sand compacted. I used multiple different grains of sand so that they would compact tightly. And I vibrate them. I got this air vibrator. This thing is like radical, and I vibrate the sand into the walls of this enclosure. And let me tell you what, man, it is, I think it's awesome. And these things just breathe. You put on a track with a good center image and a band that the drummer might be back there 20 feet and the sax is over there 10 feet back on stage. You hear everybody from where they're playing from, the depth, and you close your eyes, you cannot point at the speakers.
That's incredible. I imagine they were heavy because if you're using sand and fiberglass, I mean, These things must have weighed a ton, right?
They're like 110 pounds a side. Yep.
Oh, wow.
So now I'm thinking to myself, I'm back to the adjustability thing, right? Now I need to make a stand for this thing where I can orient my mid-range and tweeter to any position, right? The woofer, you can kind of move it around. You can point them up into the middle, and you can move them around because they're a sphere on a stand. But the mid-range and tweeter, you can back one off, pull one forward, separate them a lot from each other, put them right next to each other, just really be able to play with it and see what cause and effect is, right? I don't do much with science. I just go cause and effect. So I do this adjustable stand, which I actually ended up getting a 21 claim patent on. Mm-hmm. We filed for a patent on that, and it came through 2 years later, which, after like 6 months, everybody goes, if you didn't get it yet, you didn't get it. But it eventually came through 2 years later. So I take this prototype to the Stereophile show in Manhattan in the fall of 2007, October, I think it was like 11th in 2007. And we're coming out of nowhere. No one knows we exist. I got a manufacturer to lend me an amp. And honestly, my little 25 watt per channel Harman Kardon receiver I bought for my wife for Christmas when I worked at Sound Playground. That thing is awesome sounding. I love that thing. So to this day, I still play it. If I played it for you, you'd go, that's 25 watts. So I show up at the show and we're there for the weekend. It takes over the entire hotel, the Grand Hyatt, I believe it was, down in the middle of Manhattan. It costs a lot to be there. And so when I first set up in there, I'm like, man, this is nothing like I have in my other rooms I've put this in. It's like this room was covered with corners, lots of moldings and corners. And it just blew the image out terrible. So I slid them around the room and I put them in a location that they sounded where they're supposed to.
Mm-hmm.
And it was inconvenient for people coming in and listening, but it ended up getting from a lot of the main reviewers in the industry. I won't mention their names, but there's a bunch of them. And it got best sound at the show, best of show, most innovative product, some of the best sound. I mean, on and on and on. Wired magazine calls me immediately, wants them down on the west side of Manhattan for a photograph. And I'm in this photo studio. It looks something out of a movie. It was huge. And the guy pulls the Nike sneakers off of the stand and puts my speakers up on the thing. He let me stay. He was reluctant, but I said, can I stay? I'm all the way down here from Connecticut. And I had my daughter with me. She was like 12, and he says, yeah, okay. But he didn't realize I was going to watch everything he was doing. And I did some great photographs later when I saw how he filmed such a thing. So it just takes off. It's like 1,000 pages deep. I mean, I can't be getting the advertising I'm getting if you spend $1 million, right? So we're like, oh man, what are we going to do now? All right, we got to put together a manufacturing facility. So I buy a CNC machine, a full machine shop, facility over in Durham. It was an old manufacturing facility split up into suites and took that over. And now we're off to the races. So I'm shipping these things to the first dealer I put on in Nashua, New Hampshire. I built a mobile showroom out of a 18-foot Thule trailer. Bought a brand new Thule trailer, did the whole interior up like a car audio guy would. And so I can drive it around and demo. I took one trip and I sold initial pairs on the one trip, up to Boston and southern New Hampshire, Nashua. And they want a pair. And I'm like, okay, now I got to make these things. This is hard. These things aren't easy to make. So meanwhile, we're setting up the manufacturing and showing them off at the same time. So it's all happening in real time. And so this dealer in New Hampshire says, I'll take a demo pair, but we only sell 1 to 2 pairs of speakers over $20,000 price point a year. So he says, don't expect much business. I said, all right, whatever. He sells the first pair in 2 days, the second pair in 2 weeks. This guy sells 9 pair in 9 months.
And tell everybody what, I was just going to say, tell everybody what the price of these were too.
$26,000 a pair. I put them up for. That I made the price up the day before the show in New York. Wow. So I should have said 39. So,
and this was 2007, which was huge sum of money back. It's a huge sum of money now for speakers.
And I'm making these things, Edwin, as fast as I can build them. Right? We're just like all cylinders firing, trying to build these to perfection. You're up against China building the iPhone, like perfect.
Yeah.
At these shows, everything around them is $150,000 a pair and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
They're sparing no expense, and they've been doing it a long time. And I'm coming out of nowhere, and it's like I'm creating a serious ruckus, but you still got to pull this off somehow. And if you went over to China to do business, it was 20%. In America, it's 80%. So, I see why people end up doing business in China, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's a sad state that we're in, but it's also kind of something that we did to ourselves because people love cheap electronics, or and I don't mean
Right.
cheap as cheaply made. I'm talking about cheap as in cheaper
Well,
prices.
something you can afford to pay for. Yeah.
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 It's a
Yeah.
vicious
Because it's
cycle.
expensive.
Yep.
And something unique here, I'll pause in the story of this and say is I always thought that I always gloated in myself that custom, you're looking at something and you're going, right? You're building something custom. I thought that was the hardest realm. Manufacturing is really hard.
Mm-hmm.
I give those guys respect. Yeah, to do the same thing over and over perfectly, not easy. So I get invited. Dennis is like the grandfather of tube amplifiers.
Mm-hmm.
He's the one that kind of did the push to bring them back into the world, after transistors took over. So he sees them up in New Hampshire, and he goes, I want these speakers at Consumer Electronics Show in Vegas in January. It's about 3 weeks away, right? So I managed to put together a pair and get them shipped there. He moves the $150,000 a pair, I won't say the name of the manufacturer, off to the side, really high-end Danish speakers. And he puts my speakers there, and he sends me a note after the show, says that was the best show we had in 20 years. And I had all the big wigs in there going, wow. I was playing Sweet Baby Jane, right?
Mm-hmm.
The most played song at an audio show in probably history, right? and I saw the head editor of Stereophile magazine walking in the hall at the end of the day, and I said, "Can I get you to come in here and hear this real quick?" And he's like, he doesn't want to be bothered. He's been, going all day, and he's like the man, And he comes in, he sits down. I play him Sweet Baby Jane. I said, I'm going to play you something you've heard a million times that you've never heard it like this before. And I play it for him, and he goes, whoa, what are these? Where are you located? He wanted to come up to the factory and everything. That's how blown away he was. So that's what we got. So we pick up dealers in Moscow, Sweden, Switzerland, Bulgaria, Netherlands, Hong Kong, China. They're signing up on the spot at CES.
Wow.
And they all want a pair. So I got to make, I'm ramping up. I got to make these things, hiring more people, trying to source the goods and get these things made. It couldn't have been any better. All I had to do was 200 pair year 2, and I was a millionaire. I mean, it couldn't
200?
have been any better. 200 pair and I'm a millionaire. I did the math. So we sold 34 pair with no advertising until about April of 2008. That's only 4 months after the CES show. And
Mm-hmm.
what happens? The greatest economy crash since the Great Depression. High-end audio is the last thing anybody's thinking about.
Yep.
And first thing to go, really.
Yeah.
And it's shut off like a light switch.
Oh man, that's heartbreaking.
Yeah, we lost $500,000 and walked away with our tail between our legs, and that was the end of it. But
wow.
I have 2 pairs. I'm looking at them right now.
So after that '08 crash and after everything sort of plateaued, did you ever consider maybe giving it another shot?
Every single person. So I had Yale pay me to come lecture at the School of Sound Design
Mm-hmm.
about it. This is probably, 6 years ago or so. And it paid pretty good. I should call them up, see, you want me to lecture again? It paid pretty good. So, that's what they do. They do sound. That's, this is Yale, and they're high end, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
so I set them up in there, and I talked about, my career for probably an hour and a quarter. And then I played them for 45 minutes. The professor that's been there for like 38 years comes down from the back of the room, and he goes, what are you doing with these? I go, well, the economy crashed, blah, blah, blah. He goes, you have got to do something with this. And again, it's back to the same old story. I'm just trying to make a living and
Mm-hmm.
support my family, and to take on a big transition like that. If you got somebody with big money that wants to come in, and I'd love to do it again. there's not much I would change. I think I would like to motorize them so that you can set up a test mic and some software, and they totally time align themselves. Now I do it with a fishing pole and a knitting needle, where I find I'll set that up where your head would be behind the chair, with a mic stand, and then I'd find the voice coil, which is where the timing originates, and get them all time aligned. It does make a difference, no question.
There you go. The more things change, the more they stay the same, because those same concepts still apply to this day.
It's physics, right?
Yeah, physics is physics.
That was something that was on my heart in the last few days about when I talked to you. Is just like the simplicity. I don't want any features.
Yep.
I just want the simplicity, and some of the best systems I've ever heard are the simplest ones,
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of it with these speakers has to do with the crossover, and ping me up later and I'll send you some pictures of the design of the crossover. Like when I was developing the crossover for it, and this would apply to car audio all day long. And I'm doing it on a piece of MDF with some tracer wire and stuff to, like flat tracer wire like you'd have on a circuit board. And I'm playing with positioning of the coils and the capacitors and where they are in relation to each other on the circuit board. Huge. Because the fields of the coils are reacting with each other. And I see a lot of talk about it online, but unless you play with it and experiment with it, which I know probably a lot of people have, it is everything. But here was a big one. So, okay, the wire. You always see all this stuff about wire, what's good wire, what's bad wire, and all this. So I'm looking when I'm developing this in my bedroom. Remind me, and I'll send you pictures of what this bedroom floor looked like. My wife's away for like a month, and mad scientist shit. So I'm thinking I want the best wire that I could possibly have. So I get a hold of like the top wire manufacturers. I need samples. I want to play with your wire. I got this speaker I'm developing, send them pictures. And then all these people are sending me wires. And then I read this article from this guy from Sweden that was an engineer. He wasn't a sound guy or anything. He was an engineer. And he dove into electrically why and he experimented with every kind of wire you can imagine and analyzed it and recorded it. And so he came up with Teflon jacketed, Teflon, not PVC, not other materials, but Teflon jacketed plenum, so it's very thin. A plenum wire is what you would run up in a ceiling in case there's a fire. It's like the minimum amount of smoke that would come from the wire if it would burn. Cat 5 wire, right? Your computer cabling. It's twisted pair. It's rejecting noise. It's right. So I bought some Teflon coated Cat 5 wire, and I would just twist all the negatives, twist all the positives, and I try this wire, and it completely blew my mind. I could A/B it for anybody that doesn't even know anything about sound, and they'd have to admit, oh yeah, I hear that. The detail and the imaging, everything changed. So I was making my own cables because of that. So
there's actually a guy on the competition circuit that uses Cat 5 wire, and he swears by it for his vehicle. And he's right. He's one of the top winners in the circuit, actually.
He is correct. But if he doesn't know about it being Teflon, see, because capacitance and inductance of the wire, right? Capacitance stores the charge and then lets it back out, right? At a certain interval. An inductor, an inductor is a coil. What does it do? Right? It low passes, right? So you look at the inductance and capacitance of the insulator. Now, if you could have just raw copper with no insulator, that'd be great, right? And there's engineers and stuff that are probably going to poke at me on all this, but I'm just going by experiments and what I came out with. practical experience. So the Teflon has a very low capacitance, very low inductance, is what I remember reading 30 years ago. So don't quote me on any of this, but it made sense to me. And it's very thin, right? Because it's plenum, right? I don't know. I would challenge anybody to try it. You might be blown out of your socks. I couldn't believe it.
That's interesting. It's funny how some of the things have evolved over the years. Like you were talking about earlier about the Clarion, and now one of the, because back in the day, getting back to IASCA, you guys had a 2-seat tunes, correct? Because now
a what?
A 2-seat tune,
Say it
like
again.
A 2-seat tune, like basically the sound sounded good from both the front seats. Because
that's the hard thing to do.
Yeah, that's the hard thing to do. Now there's a company called Riven out there they developed a processor that extracts the center image, and you have to have a center image speaker. But that's something new. It's been out for the last maybe 2 or 3 years, I believe. But now what most people tune for is a 1-seat tune, because it's very difficult to get a 2-seat tune. So almost every car that you get into, only the driver is going to be, enjoying the sweet spot, so to speak.
That's the hard part right there. We hit it with Brodeur's Honda though, because we had those tools to work with.
Yep.
Timing.
Yeah, and you guys were using kick panel
you can
locations.
move the sound all around.
Yep.
Yeah.
So what do you think? Like the state of sound quality now versus, back in the 90s? I know that you said you're not familiar with all the brands, but I mean, as far and you dip your toes in some of the stuff. I'm sure you see it, and you follow some of the groups on Facebook. What do you think of the current state of SoundQ? What's your opinion on that?
I would be really, really. First of all, I'm totally encouraged that it's coming back to sound quality. I mean, I don't know. I never bought into just it being 100. Now they're up to what, like 168 decibels.
Oh yeah.
It's like, it's so crazy. They took it to the limit, these guys.
Yeah.
And I respect that, because that's physics too.
Yep.
No, I respect it totally, but it was never my jam. I'd sit in. Matter of fact, I felt like I blew out my right ear a little bit one day with this guy with a brown van that came in. That thing was loud. I think at that point it was like 158 dB, but now they're going way up there. But I don't know. To me, the joy of it was making something. Brodeur always said it right. He goes, when it's right, the hair on my arms stands up. It's like he's moved by it.
Oh yeah. It is a moving experience, because when I have somebody sit in my car, for example, they're just blown away. The people that aren't even familiar with sound quality, they're just used to the standard OEM system in their car, or maybe they add a subwoofer. They don't really go too far. A lot of people don't go too far these days, but I mean a lot of that has to do with the OEM manufacturers have stepped up their game, but it's still not quite what a sound quality enthusiast likes. I mean, we're kind of a different breed, but the difference with a sound quality car, when somebody steps in it, they know it when they sit in it, even if they're not into sound quality. They're just blown away. And you might get that person to be sort of like what happened with me and you, where I was just into having clean sound, and then when I got into a car with sound quality and it had an image, I was hooked. I know,
totally.
You created a monster.
I'm so happy I got you on the Morel too. I always love Morel.
Yeah, I was like, Morel? What the heck is Morel? I never even heard of them. And I got Morels and
smooth.
Yeah.
Yep.
They were awesome drivers. I had them in. I went to your shop and had them installed. I had a '83 Buick Skylark. And I had Acoustic Research 6x9s in the back, and I knew I wanted something better in the front. I had PPI amps installed in the trunk.
Yeah.
My trunk was useless. I couldn't even put a spare tire any longer in the trunk.
Were they the white ones, or before that, the black ones?
They were black. The first ones that I bought from you guys were black. I bought the white ones later on from you guys, And then I went with Soundstream Reference Series, the blue ones
Yep.
when they came out. I still, even to this day, I feel like buying the Art Series amp from eBay or something and just hanging it up on the wall like a picture, because they were such beautiful amps, the Art Series. And the lady that created
what
that
amps
art, she actually passed away not that long ago. The
Oh, no
artist.
kidding.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was like southwestern looking or something.
Yeah. They were
Remember they
gorgeous
came out with
amps.
Sedona, the cheaper line with Sedona.
Yep.
Y- you know what amp I liked? That was kind of a cheaper feeling amp on the outside
Mm-hmm.
was the Carver amps. They probably weren't out that long, brands
Oh
would
yeah,
come
I
and go,
remember.
but
They made good home
Carver
audio
amps,
stuff too.
I did so, yeah. I did some nice systems with those. I did this one Isuzu pickup truck. This was for IASCA.
Mm-hmm.
He won, and he was going to the. No, I could be wrong on this, but I think he won the East Coast. I don't remember if it was Long Island or where it was, but he won the East Coast with this truck that I did for him, and then he rolled it on the way home.
Oh no!
Totaled, rolled it. And this was unique though. I took this Isuzu truck. I did like strips of wood that were like 1/2 inch tall, maybe 5/8 tall, all over the floor, about every, squares of maybe 8-inch squares or something, all over the floor of the truck. And then I mounted the subwoofers where there were 4 10s, 2 under the seat, 2, just ahead of the seat that breathed to the outside of the vehicle. So they were free air. So you were living inside the enclosure. It actually worked really good.
Yeah.
And then I put the wood strips there so I can inlay sand, and then I sealed it in with Dynamat, right? So the sand is stationary inside these 8-inch square pockets, all over the floor and the entire truck. And then, I did like 12 inches pieces of PVC that stuck down about 6 inches under the truck. And then I took some heating and air conditioning filters and created filters so that, water and different junk wouldn't get up into the speaker. That actually worked really good. He was ready to go to the finals and he rolled his truck.
That's heartbreaking. Man. Yeah. I remember those. And I know that Carver, I think they're still around, but I know that back in the day, this place that I used to DJ at had Carver amps for their PA system, and I know that they used to have Carver amps for PA setups and stuff like that. I used to see them at different music stores, but I haven't seen any Carver amps around for car audio in a long time.
They probably put their toe in the water and realized, we're not going to make any money here, and they pulled out, just like a lot of other brands did through the years.
Yeah.
But back to your question there, I haven't really sat in a high quality audio system in a car in, it could be like 30 years.
Wow.
I'm 62, 32. Now let's say 25 years. Right. And we were at this party a couple of weeks ago in North Carolina, and everybody was bragging about this system this rich guy's kid had. And I'm like, yeah, let me check it out. Yeah, I was in the car audio heavy, man, for a long time. Let me check it out. And we get in the car and he plays this thing, and he's like looking over at me like, yeah, man, what do you think? I'm like, oh man.
Did it blow you away?
Bad.
Or was it
all
bad?
It was banging outside the truck, so the neighbors could hear it. And it was just like, it was zero sound quality, and he loved it.
Yeah.
So
hey.
the whole thing might have changed, maybe people don't care. I know the older generation does. And I think if you could turn the younger generation onto it, they would be like, wow, this is awesome.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's the thing. That's why we do these get-togethers. We have a lot of get-togethers. Believe it or not, there's some that are out in your neck of the woods too. There's people out there. We have competitions and stuff like that out there.
Really?
Yeah. Next.
I'd find that a blast to go to something like that. You got to just let me know when they're taking place. I'll take the time.
Once we're done with the podcast, let me know exactly like what area you're in, and I'll let you know when they're having those meets or those competitions. That way you can hear what a real sound quality car is these days. Cause I think you'd be pleasantly surprised and you'd be impressed because the technology now has
You would
definitely.
have to think it would evolve. Yeah,
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
it's
Yeah.
evolved. The techniques, is obviously, physics is physics, and the more that you can get that triangle even with the listener, of course. But DSP these days have evolved big time, and like I said, with that Riven, I've heard nothing but I haven't had a chance to sit in a car with the Riven processor, but I hear nothing but good things about it. I hope to listen to a car next season with a Riven. One of my friends picked up the Riven processor, and supposedly it's like the cat's meow. So
Why not? I mean, Clarion did that back in '96 or whatever, right? That would have been the first touchdown into that realm, and it would have to be great now. Quiet and everything you care about.
So what advice you
You know
got
who?
for somebody who like a do-it-yourself or even a pro, now that you've been, you're pretty much a veteran of the industry, and a former owner and former speaker builder. What type of advice do you got for an up and comer or a seasoned pro?
Is know the driver and understand what it needs to live in for air volume, right? And the surfaces around it, like, residents will kill any good system. You have to go to extra lengths to make your car deadened to sound so that your car is not becoming a speaker, because that's the most common thing. I mean, that's huge. And then phase balance placement. So I always like to I create prototypes to play with, right? So maybe put a speaker in an enclosure of the size that you can achieve in a particular location you're going to work on, and just mock it up and play with it, angles, positioning, and you have to get center balance. If you got a tweeter 6 inches away from your head, forget about trying to go 30 feet deep with an image. So you're always thinking about trying to get this stuff away from you. That's what I mean. I'm going back 30 years of thinking here, but get it away from you, and phase balance placement, and set yourself up with tools to experiment. There's a guy that used to work for me. I don't know if you remember him. His name's Chris. I'll leave his last name out.
Was he the one with the with Integra? He was into modding Japanese cars, if I remember. Or was he the one with the Grand National?
He's one of the most talented people I've ever met in my life. He went to work for some place out of New York City, somewhere around New York City maybe. And this shop took it to a whole nother level. They'll scan the kick panel with a device that translates it to the CNC, and
the 3D scanners. Yep.
Oh man, they took things to a whole nother level. And Chris is extraordinarily talented. They took it to a level, I'm a grandfather in this business. They took the baton and went to a whole nother level.
That's great.
Now, do those cars sound good? I imagine they do. And simplicity, to me, to this day, you have to convince me if you just prove it to me. But to this day, I'll take a pair of killer tube amps, single-ended tube amps, on my speakers, and it just becomes so wide and natural and flowing and bloomy, and it's like you put on a live concert, turn the lights out, the hair is up on your arms, and you think you're there. I mean, it's just convincing. I'm a big simple and effective.
Keep it
just
simple.
Adding a bunch of gear in a thing. Everything you add takes away something.
Every time you add something to the chain, there's going to be a sonic, something imperceptible. There's going to be something. When you add things to the chain, you're just adding more and more things that could go wrong, more and more things that could add to noise, more and more things that could deteriorate also or take away from the experience. So it's usually good to keep it simple. I try to keep it simple myself. So
simple and make your speaker locations great. You know.
So Ray, you told me you reconnected with Ray recently, right?
Yeah. So okay, this is a wild thing. So I called Ray, haven't talked to him in probably 15 years. And I called him up out of nowhere. This is like 2 weeks ago. Buddy, I miss you, man. What is up? How are you? And I now follow his wife on Facebook. She posts all the time. So she says, I'm talking to him and his wife. She goes, Ray's thinking of selling his car. I go, what kind of shape is it in? It's got 45,000 miles. and it's in mint condition. He kept that thing perfect.
Wow.
He drove it once a month for a Sunday drive, and that was it.
That's incredible.
And apparently the system is just like I left it. So I got to get a car for my youngest daughter, and I can picture her driving around in an IASCA winter.
Wow.
That's more than she bargained for.
Wouldn't that be great if the car came back home to Papa? Full circle?
That's what I told him. Keep it in the family, buddy.
Yeah.
I'm going to Connecticut. I'm going to be up in Connecticut. I would love to see you, actually. This is a great thing. And I've got a wedding up near Newport.
Okay.
And then my wife's driving back, and I'm staying there. I'm doing I eventually got into pro sound along the way. I did a lot of churches and stuff, and then I got into doing construction of all the churches. I'll do and I make the rooms acoustically correct, right?
Yeah, that's a whole nother animal. I dabbled into that too.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Big animal. It's a good one though. There's techniques on how to get it done right. So I've got a church job to do while I'm up there, but I'm going to be up there a whole week. I got like 2-3 days at a church. Then I got to hang out until they have their Sunday service for like 2-3 days. I'd love to see you in that time frame.
That'd be great. You got to invite Ray. Tell Ray to bring his car. We can compare old versus new tech now. Ray could sit in my car. I could sit in his car, if at all possible. But that'd be great. I'd love to have dinner.
That would be fun.
Dinner or lunch with you. Yeah, that'd be great.
Where do you live in Connecticut?
Now I live in down near I don't want to say exactly where I live because there's going to be on the interwebs, but
yeah.
I live down by you. So I live down near that area.
He lives.
Okay, he lives from me.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right, this is going to work out great. This will be fun. Let's do this.
Yeah, I'd love to see Brodeur. I haven't talked to him. I mean, since the 90s. Basically, after I left cartoons, I had my car all prepared and I went up there, and Alan was still obviously one of the owners, but they were kind of, I think, didn't Boomer McLeod did they merge with Boomer? So
yeah, the Boomer McLeod thing was they were gonna try to take kind of like True Value and Ace Hardware did. They took all the little hardware stores in town.
Yep.
And they gave them a name. They gave them advertising. It was a good concept, but I think the timing was wrong.
Yeah.
In the industry.
Well, that was the thing about that time, that around the 2000s, the dealership started making better systems, OEM systems, and then they made it harder and harder to integrate a system into an OEM. They nearly made it almost nearly impossible. Where there's a will, there's a way, because now there's a lot of companies that make hardware to integrate into the newer systems, because the newer systems are really complex. The radio is tied into everything: the seatbelt, the tire pressure monitor system. I mean, if you literally cannot even remove the radio out of a car now, because literally it's the brain.
I remember in the late 90s, the Honda came through with that. The computer was like in the radio.
Yep.
Right. You couldn't take it out.
Oh yeah. It's real bad now. That. So what was I saying? I forgot what I was saying. What were we talking about a few seconds ago before the integration? I know what I was saying. I went up there because I finally finished my system. I wasn't made of money, but I was competing on the circuit, and I had my Civic, and I had the box that was inspired by Ray's car and you, and I had my Soundstream amps, and I had you remember back then the recipe for winning was JL Audio, PPI, and MB Court. That was basically the recipe to win. But instead of PPI, I went with Soundstream, and my car was winning left and right. I'd take a fifth here and there, a fourth here and there. I got invited to nationals, and I said, man, I want to go. Dan was my inspiration for all this. I want to go show him my system. And it had been a few years. I think this was like the late 90s. And I went up there and I talked to Alan, and Alan said that you were gone. And I was like, oh no. He's like, yeah, he's no longer, with the company. And so you had stepped out of cartoons, right? At that point in the late 90s.
Yeah, I lost the taste on the way back from the World Finals. I just felt like, I've pursued this for 15 years. I'm going to do something else. It wasn't conscious. It was just, you got to be driven by something, right?
Yeah.
But I do, because I've had how many years to think about it? 25 years, 27 years to think about it. I would love to do one more system before I get too old to go under a dash.
Yeah,
you
said that. You said that. You said you'd love to do
I want to do one more
system.
system. Yeah, I want to do one more. I know exactly what I would do.
So anybody that's out there on internet land, if you guys want award-winning knowledge, this is your man. And the only stipulation is you got to let him take his time, leave the car with them. And you're out in South Carolina, you said?
I'm in Virginia.
Virginia. What? I messed that up twice.
That's okay. That's okay. Hey, I tried to find the middle of the country. So, it's like the winters are shaved off. They're not bad. And the summers are not bad. So it's kind of right in the middle, right where I want it.
Yeah.
But here's the rules. If I do another car, you drop it off, you leave me alone. You're just paying for it. I don't care what you want. I don't, like I don't want any of the social end. And you just leave me alone and let me be like this mad scientist and let me do it. And then you get it back. And if you don't like it, I guess I give you my house or whatever. But,
No, I think I've seen your work. I've seen your madness, because I know you're kind of like one of those people that just think outside the box. You don't do things like, the cookie cutter or, everything's like what every other installer does. You kind of think outside the box and experiment, and it always comes together and it always sounds great. Because every car that I know, when you did Brodeur's truck, it sounded great. I remember the Suzu you were talking about. I remember, I remember all the cars. We did a bunch of cars. I mean, I heard so many good cars come out of cartoons. It was great. It wasn't, when I was working there, it wasn't even work for me. I was having the time of my life. I was young and dumb, but aren't we all at that age? But it was one of those things where like you land your dream job and like it's not work, because you're
right.
My girlfriend used to get mad at me because I would come home at like 10 at night, because I'd stay there after 5 o'clock off the clock, just working on my own car or watching the other installers work on cars, helping them or helping around the shop. Wasn't even getting paid, and I was still happy. Those were the days,
No, that's it.
Yeah.
That's it. No, it's an obsession. It's a great obsession. It's fun because like installers, like I would hire an installer in any industry because he has dealt with so many different things. Woodworking, fiberglass, upholstery, sound deadening, wiring, electronics. I mean, there's so many realms involved in car audio. It's a unique group of people, totally. And a lot of respect for it, because it's a hard game, man.
Oh yeah, it's not easy. Yeah, and on top of that, you got to please the customers. At the end of the day, you got customers to think about, and at the same time, you're trying to make a profit. So, but yeah, it was great. In the 90s were probably, I would say, the golden era of car audio. That's what we're trying to do now. We're trying to bring that golden era back. I think we're kind of, we might be in the bronze stage. I don't know if we're quite at the golden stage, but we're bringing it back. I got people like you to thank. Like you said, you're the grandfather of that era. And I mean, it's just great. But Dan, I think we're going to wrap it up. Don't hang up. I'm going to wrap up this podcast. I want everybody to say thank you to Dan. All right, Dan. Hang on 1 second. Okay, buddy?